Hey DC fam, today we're extremely excited to bring you an all-new innovation into air ride trailers. Just over 3 years ago, Diamond C made their debut into air ride trailers and the Hotshot market. All along the way, we've listened to you and gained insights as to what would make the most functional, durable air ride system on the market. We've partnered with Cush Systems to bring that to reality. Let's go take a look and see what it's all about. It's no secret that air ride has been around quite a while in Hotshot. But the thing is, it's gotten pretty boring over time with going unchanged and not a lot of functionality added, not a lot of time spent on it. It just was what it was. And again, like I said in the intro, over the past few years, we've listened to tons of concerns and ideas and things that we could improve. And so teaming up with Cush has been huge in bringing the Relier T3 to market. The Relier T3 is what you see here, is this total air control system that has way more package functionality coming straight from them, and it's not piecing this and piecing that to make it work like most all manufacturers have done in the past. So we're going to just step through all the functionality that this Relier system offers, and then we'll take a look at the suspension as well, because there's some improvement there too. So first, I just want to explain for the guys who aren't super familiar with air ride. In the Hotshot industry, primarily being pulled by F350, Ram 4500, like all of these dually pickups primarily, they don't have supplied air off the truck. So these systems have to be self-contained. We run dual batteries on ours, and so that's where it gets its power from to regenerate when it needs air, versus in semis, it pulls the air from the tractor going down the road. So first you have an on-off switch. You're keeping the system on while you're running. You turn it off obviously when you're not running, but you flip it on. You have a digital voltage gauge showing you the status of your batteries. If it's in red, yellow, green, do your batteries need to be charged? How are they doing? And you also have the digital readout. Like right now we're showing 12.5 volts, which is good. So next we're going to work left to right. You have a lift valve, and what that is it lifts the front axle off the ground. So if you're running lightly loaded or empty, you can lift the front axle, incurring less tolls, a little bit less wear and tear on wheels and tires and brakes and those things. That's not anything new. We have had the lift axle as a standard feature for quite a while. The dump feature is where it gets a lot better. That feature allows you to dump all the air out of the air springs, lowering the bed height to where that it gives you a better load angle for loading equipment, or maybe low profile car, what have you, making you more versatile on site. The good thing is it only dumps the air out of the air springs, versus in the past, all the air in the whole system was dumped out, taking longer for the system to regenerate when it was time to go ahead and leave the work site or get on the road. Next we have a load gauge, which is super cool, because what this gauge tells you when you're loaded, say you show up to a site, they've told you it's 15,000 pounds worth of cargo, they load you up, you're able to look at this gauge, and if it's reading 30 pounds of pressure, you look over at your load gauge chart, and it being tandem, okay, I've got 15.8. They were right on the money. Or if they load you up and you look and it's 22,000, we know we need to have a conversation. But it just gives you at least a relative area of how much weight you have on the axles of the trailer, to where you're not grossly overloading yourself without knowing it. There's a huge improvement there. Next is the tank gauge. This is just giving you a visual representation of the amount of air pressure in the system. It's going to run at 120 plus or minus about 5 pounds of pressure. You'll notice it'll come down to about 90 pounds of pressure, then it'll regen and it'll come back up. And what that's doing is it's balancing as you go down the road, and it blows off air from hitting brakes in the concrete or potholes or whatever. As the suspension travels, this is going to regen every now and then to keep the air system supplied. Next is this air chuck. What's really cool about it is it's two-way. Number one, you can put a 1/4 inch air line in it and be able to run small air tools or air up a tire. But the flip side is, if for some reason your system goes dead, you can actually put a valve stem attachment in it and manually air up your system going the other way to get you down the road. Next, we're going to talk about the compressors. We have dual ARB compressors. They're 2/3 horsepower compressors each, versus the industry standard for so many years has been 2 1/4 horse compressors. The higher horsepower doesn't sound like a lot from a 1/4 to 2/3, but it's quite a bit extra horsepower when you're talking about bag fill time, redundancy, durability. ARB is a well-known name in off-road racing in harsh environments, so these compressors are guaranteed to stand up to some brutal mileage going down the road. There's a supplied LED light, so when the switch is on, this light is on, illuminating the compressor setup to where you can see at night, you pull over, you got a good visual. Next, we have a water separator. Anybody who's been around air compressors know they generate and make condensation as they run. And so the cool thing about this water separator, as air flows through the system, it's catching moisture and containing it so that it doesn't stay in the system. Say it's cold outside, you don't want it freezing on you, so it's catching this and you're able to keep it cleaned out. The next thing is there's a remote tank drain, and that's for the same purpose. You're pulling that cord, it's opening a valve on the bottom of the tank, letting any water or condensation that's built up inside the tank get out, so that in a cold weather environment you don't risk it freezing and freezing your system up. And now we'll take a look at the actual suspension as it pertains to the air springs, which actually gives it the Cush ride, and the galvanized arms. When it comes to the actual suspension itself, we learned that there are several functionality and consumer experience upgrades that needed to be brought into the mix. The way that air ride suspensions have been done for 40 years is that the actual axle itself is triple pass welded into the arm. While that's heavy duty and strong and reliable, it's a terrible customer experience should you ever have to change an axle for a bearing failure, or for, you say you want to change your brake type and you need to change the axle. We've learned that our dealers, most of the dealers, aren't adequately prepared to do a service like that when you're talking about having to cut it out of the arms, and it's a lot of cutting and structural welding, obviously very important welding. And so we took that scenario to Cush, and they delivered by engineering a suspension that is a bolt-in application using U-bolts, much like heavy-duty semi-trailer U-bolts on spring suspension. And so it's going to be a long-lasting suspension just as much as the welded-in version. We're confident in that, and it's going to be great. The other thing, you look at the galvanized arms, it's a little detail, but we know, as well as anybody who's familiar with coatings, that galvanized is the ultimate coating. And so this piece right here gets thrashed in the wintertime due to magnesium chloride and salt and snow and all those things on the road. And so the galvanized will keep it lasting longer without rusting, without deteriorating for a long time to come. The Cush system that we've displayed today is available on the F-Max 210, 212, 310, 312, 216, as well as the step deck models and even some of the pintle ring models. To learn more about air ride, we have an article on our learning center at diamondsea.com. You can jump on there, kind of get better familiar with air ride as a whole. Make sure to get out there, do work, love strong, and we're going to see you on the road.